closed circulatory system, the blood is always contained within these blood vessels. So we're going to talk about the different blood vessels and their characteristics. So arteries are defined by the fact that they are carrying blood away from the heart. That means the heart is pumping the blood into the arteries, and the blood is generally under higher pressure. So blood under higher pressure. This means that there has to be elasticity in the blood vessels that allows them to expand and then contract. And then we also have a more muscular layer in the arteries. So we actually have more smooth muscle in the arteries than in, for example, the veins. And they are more elastic. So that means that when they expand, like in your aorta, when it expands, it will also just kind of contract back down. And that keeps the blood moving in a very smooth fashion. Okay, and then if your arteries are hardened and not elastic, that is a bad thing. Okay. When we talk about the arteries, they generally carry oxygen rich. O2 rich blood. Except for the pulmonary arteries. And that is because they are carrying blood from the heart to the lungs where they're going to actually pick up oxygen. And so this is confusing because a pulmonary artery is blue in the diagram rather than actually being red, but it is an artery. So the arteries are not always blue. In the case of the pulmonary arteries, red. In case of the pulmonary artery, it would be blue. Okay, so then let's look at the veins. They generally carry blood back to the heart. By definition, they do. The blood is under lower pressure. There is less smooth muscle. But they have valves. And the arteries do not have valves. The valves prevent the backflow of blood. Because it is under low pressure, think about the blood that has to come up from your feet when you're standing back to the heart. So it comes up a little bit and then it goes back down and the valves catch it so that it doesn't go too far down. One of the interesting things about these veins is that they are also associated with skeletal muscles. So I'll write that up here. So they're associated with skeletal muscle. So that means that they kind of run through the skeletal muscle. So for example, when I walk, that actually helps the muscle contraction in my legs, actually helps to move the blood back to my heart. And this prevents blood pooling in your feet. You do not want the blood to be stagnant in the body, to pool anywhere, because that can cause clotting. And so as you get older, there's a greater risk of blood clotting because of problems with your circulatory system. And so they recommend that, for example, if you have this problem, or if you're older, that you don't sit for extended periods of time. So this is why, for example, when you're in airplanes, people get up and they walk, because they probably are doing that because their doctor told them that they needed to do that. Because if you don't do that, then your blood will start to pool and that can lead to something that is called deep vein thrombosis, which can be a clot that can break free and then can travel to anywhere in your body. So it could travel to your heart, your blood vessels serving your heart, your brain, your lungs, and that can cause you to die. And so this movement helps to pump the blood. So not moving for extended periods of time is a problem because of that. So then from the veins, most of these are carrying O2 poor blood. So we'll continue this here. So still veins, most carry, but veins continued, O2 poor blood, except you'll guess it, the pulmonary vein. So that is actually carrying O2 rich blood. It is red, which is carrying it from the lungs back to the heart to be then pumped back to the body. Now, the other type of vessel is the capillaries, or are the capillaries, and the capillaries are very thin-walled. And they are leaky, which means that substances will move out of the capillaries. So we can talk about capillary exchange. So the arteries branch and branch into smaller blood vessels until we get to what is called an arteriole. And maybe I'll use some different colors here. So I'll use red and blue. Okay, so this is the arteriole end. So oxygen-rich blood is coming in to the arterial end, and then it is leaving via the venule end. So this is my venule. Oops, don't spell it that way. For some reason, they take the I out of there, so it's just the venule end of my capillary. Okay. Blood is coming in under very high pressure. So we have what is called high hydrostatic pressure here. So high hydrostatic pressure, that's blood pressure. And because the capillaries are leaky, stuff is going to move out of them. So for example, oxygen moves out, glucose moves out, amino acids move out. Even water will tend to move out. In our closed system, we generally do not have cells leaving. So cells will leave, like white blood cells will leave if they sense an infection, but the red blood cells, you want to always stay within the capillaries. So we have at the other end, we have low hydrostatic pressure because the blood has met with a lot of resistance, and it has actually lost some of its fluid into the capillaries. So we have low hydrostatic pressure. So at this end, we have what is called high osmotic pressure. So this is actually going to suck stuff back in from the tissues. So in this side, the venule end, what will happen is CO2 will be sucked back in, water will be sucked back in, and for example, urea. So that is a nitrogenous waste that we're going to talk about when we get to the excretory system. So stuff gets sucked back in because of this high osmotic pressure at the venule end of the capillary. So this is where capillary exchange takes place. And this bathes our cells in oxygen and nutrients and water, but also helps to remove these from the